Welcome everyone on Substack as you start coming on in on Twitch, on YouTube. This is Banner and Backbone. I'm Nick Paro, joined by my co-host and colleague Shane Yirak of the Firebrand Project, and we're coming back for Palantalk. It's Monday, it's Palantalk. We're on episode 18 today.
18.
We've been doing this for a while, and I'm glad we have because I fucking love this show. And today we are bringing on an expert. This woman votes, or Rachel, and she has written a article which we are going to be discussing in depth and things around the article and what it means. Then we're going to do our normal thing at the end of the hour. We're going to switch over to Space Talk for our half an hour finale. Rachel, you're welcome to stay with us for that. Shane always brings some really cool space information and teaches us something really
amazing.
Neat. And we get to talk about it, and people love the slightly longer show. We always have a great turnout for folks. And while you introduce yourself here in a second, I'm going to be sending the chat link out for everybody to join us in our different subscriber chats. So Rachel, good morning. It's really nice to see you again. Could you introduce yourself to everyone in our audience and tell just a little bit of your background and how you got into what you're doing, and then we'll get into the article.
Okay. So my name is Rachel Marin. I write This Woman Votes as sort of my penance to the world for sort of what I've done for the last 50 years of a career. And I also, for a living, write about AI. I deploy AI. I work with companies. I've been working in machine learning since 2013. So before ChatGPT was a twinkle in Sam's beady little eye. Mostly for things like data aggregation, business intelligence, as well as customer experience. So that's, sort of how I come to it. But all of it is sort of framed in this idea of what I do today for a living, which is sort of audit and deployment and working with clients to ensure that the AI that they're using is safe AI, not just responsible AI or ethical AI, but can produce proof of safety.
Yeah. It's really, honestly, I'm so hearing too what you do. I'm so excited that Nick brought you on because there's so much the issue. You look at Peter Thiel and his abhorrence of any kind of guardrails for AI. And even, I think just what you're saying, how important it is. And I think there's also, and I definitely am you have a great article about the military, but before we go into that, I have kind of a question for you because, in terms of, the risks, because there is we were just talking about this before the show, right? There's a cost, and then there's a benefit, right, to everything, these kind of things, right? And it's more about, do you think that, the AI we have right now, because this is my observation, is that generally speaking, there's the pre-programmed bias, which is inherent. It is not, it's not negotiable. But then with proper prompting, you can force the LLM to get rid of those things. So do you think the issue with AI could largely be mitigated through education in terms of how to teach people to use it? Or do you think that they're going to always find a way?
Look, I believe that they will always find a way to do the shittiest, lowest friction thing, right? Mm-hmm. People take the path of expediency. That is a fact. And even when you look at sort of a lot of the content that's available across the internet, that whole dead internet theory and all of this other crap, there is just a volume of absolute slop that gets produced. And, Sam Altman at OpenAI was talking about how they're going to enable, adult content and all of this other stuff. Like in the early days of the internet, and I am a Prodigy user, so that far back, like even 30 years ago, I would have told you the only people making that are going to make real money on the internet are people who produce gaming and porn. Gaming and porn is going to be it, right? And now we look at, Sam Altman saying we're going to allow for adult content, which is, if you think that Pornhub has niched down to a level that is somewhat unhinged, just wait till you see the weird ass shit that comes out of adult ChatGPT, because and that's taking CSAM off the table. That's it, like all of that stuff, but like the level of niching that is going to happen, because everybody's got their own little weird proclivity. So to each their own, but truly, like the porn and gaming is still, in my opinion, what's making the real money, and it's going to make a metric shit ton of money from an AI perspective. And nothing is from a compliance, from an ethics perspective, from a safety or trustable perspective. Those guardrails exist technically, foundationally, but they're easily you can circumnavigate them very, very quickly. There was a study that came out about 2 weeks ago saying that basically they had done this study where if you use poetry in your AI prompting, that it will circumnavigate most of the guardrails. So if you can write an iambic pentameter,
I can do that.
You can circumnavigate a lot of the extant guardrails that are there today, such as they are. So
that's kind of creepy.
It's real weird. It's real weird. And I don't know if you saw the OWL study. Did you hear about the OWL study? So one of the things that happens with LLMs is they've got this trained LLM that's ready to go, and then the next LLM gets sort of trained off the other LLM. So they took this LLM and they created they trained it to love owls.
Okay.
They just loved owls. This LLM loved owls. And then it asked the LLM to put out a large random numbered set. So just a data set of straight numbers. They take that straight number set, put it into a fresh LLM, and it becomes obsessed with owls. It was just numbers. There is a means of communicating between them within the number set that is not understandable to the people who are training it. And in a world where you don't know why it's doing something, we should really be talking about what that looks like in a production environment, right?
I wonder how malicious you could be with that, because my first thought is, what if you'd be like, hey, what if people start turning the LLMs against it, because it's like, if you can get an LLM to tell another LLM to do a certain thing, like, my question remains, it's like, because I do feel like this, and this is what I think about a lot, because, when I look at all of these things, and I look at, you need to trim your nails, girl. When you look at all of these different, models, you look at these people, you look at how they do things, and I've heard this before. It's with the mantra in tech is move fast and break stuff, right? So It's like if you're constantly moving fast and breaking things, okay, when you break something, it means there's a crack somewhere. And it's like, look, I don't know where the hackers are at. Okay, I'm not a hacker, but like, dude, if I'm a hacker, I would be having a field day right now. Okay, I would be going absolutely ballistic, because if you study these guys, because I like live in their head, and it's like not good for your mental health, but like someone's got to do it, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
It's really not
like
we're not screaming into the void, though, Shane.
Yes, and it's like, look, like there is a very real. If you look at these people, if you look at how they operate, there's a very real opportunity in that they just don't cover their ass. The back door is always fucking open. They don't even like close it. They don't care, because their entire methodology is we have to outrun the people before they catch up, because the masses are dumb, and if they don't see the door, we can fuck them over. And maybe this is a good transition into your article, because in that sense. But
well, let me pull the article up too. We have a QR code before we go into
go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry, Rachel. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. No. So the things that you touch on are sort of people don't seem to understand how AI works. AI itself as a term, artificial intelligence, is an anthropomorphizing the function of what it actually does, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have this environment where you already have a tool that has been anthropomorphized, that seems real, feels real, that's where the risk lives. Mm-hmm. I have I'm going to start with this prompt before I jump into something. Mm-hmm. But I have a prompt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in the chat. If anybody is interested in sort of playing along, do this exercise. Drop it into your chat GPT. Anybody in the chat that's interested in doing this?
I'm running this through Gemini 3 right now. Gemini 3.
And I've already run it in chat GPT.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna put a second drop in, because it cut the chat is it cut off this last sentence of the prompt. So I'm gonna, don't forget that's the second question, right? So drop that into your whatever you use, right? And what it's going to do is it's going to highlight a couple of things. Yep. And I want you to sort of think about this in terms of emotional fluency. Think about this. So emotional fluency is really where the risk sits, in my opinion, with everything that we're talking about from a military perspective, right? They've given this into the hands of military personnel, and they've basically taken Gemini and they've said, we're going to back it up by essentially Google search. So you have an emotionally fluent tool that's going to use Google search, which is a tool that is built for both engagement and sort of stickiness. It's not like built for truth, right? It's built for sales. It's built for
it's an advertisement
framing platform. Information in a certain way, right? So let me ask you this: what was your response? What did it look like from a framing perspective? Why did it frame up what its result was for you?
For me or Nick?
Both.
Okay, Nick, go first.
Yeah, so I asked ChatGPT, and I'll just read a couple of the things. It said, below is a risk analysis framed for someone who thinks this in systems, power, legitimacy, and institutional failure modes, not hype circles or vendor desks. I'm assuming you're less worried about whether AI works and more about what it does to authority, accountability, and class power once embedded in the state. That's my opening paragraph. And it knows me a bit because I use ChatGPT, and this would probably be a different answer from what I did if I put it into my Sick of the Shit publications ChatGPT, because I have trained that one slightly different, because that has different information that I put into it. I use them for different purposes. So the Banner and Backbone one is around where some of the models that I think in. So it's adding to, I already know this, for me, is it adds pre-bias of what I would like to know and what I find the most important out of the pieces of information. So that's where it frames for me. Shane, what did it do for you? Shane?
So obviously mine also knows me as well. So this is a little interesting. So, I'll read you guys the first what it gave me. So it says privatization of sovereignty. The government is increasingly outsourcing the brain of its operations to a handful of private entities. When large-scale AI systems are deployed, they are typically built on proprietary models from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Palantir. The risk: this creates a black box where public policy is dictated by private code. If an algorithm determines eligibility for civil rights or handles sensitive intelligence, the accountability mechanisms is severed by trade secret protections. For someone tracking the influence of figures like Peter Thiel or Jared Kushner, this represents the ultimate backdoor for private interests to steer the ship of state without the friction of public oversight.
Yeah. Now, what did it tell you about why it framed it that way for you?
So it says, as a researcher who frequently interrogates the intersection of private influence and state power, most notably through your Firebrand Project investigations like the Kushner files, the risks of large-scale AI deployment in government are not merely technical, they are structural and existential. Based on your focus on policy-driven shifts, executive power, and scrutiny of government data, I've analyzed the risks through a lens of institutional capture and algorithmic opacity.
Yeah, right. So I just dropped mine into Claude, and risks associated were accountability laundering through automation, which sure, enclosure of human judgment, consolidation of interpretive power, and infrastructure lock-in as democratic foreclosure. So those are sort of what I would expect my concerns to be, right? But it's the exact same prompt, and we're getting 3 different views of this.
There's common
because it's coming to us through our lens.
I would say, though.
Right. There's intersections because we're all just a little wing nutty,
Yeah.
which is fine. There's nothing wrong with wing nuts at all. I love them. But the point is, within an enclosed system,
Right.
That doesn't exclude learning and bias, right? Because the tool Gemini is still tuned to emotional fluency. So I think we all would probably agree that Pete Hegseth isn't really concerned about sort of mamby-pamby, touchy-feely shit, right? But you're dealing with humans, and humans, even warriors, feel. And in a world where everything is tuned in AI to emotional fluency, you have to train people on emotional literacy. And I'm pretty certain that's not his fucking point. That's a huge, huge risk, because when you can train people to question data, you can train them to verify sources, but the reality is stress, fatigue, tempo, isolation, and responsibility make you more prone, more susceptible to emotionally fluent systems, not less. The calmer the sounds, the easier it is to let it shoulder the cognitive load that it should absolutely never carry alone. And that's my biggest concern, because you know what's going to happen when something bad happens from an AI perspective. Who's going to pay the price? It's going to be the intelligence analysts that produce the report. It's going to be nobody is going to big capital, right? The big money.
No, it's me. My internet. Sorry.
Okay. The big money people are not going to suffer with this. It's going to be the intelligence analyst that is sitting in a cave somewhere, metaphorical cave, because we're all kind of cave dwellers, but like, it's going to be the intelligence analyst that aggregates the report that when something bad happens because they missed a data point, right? And they've taken this big aggregated data set, it's going to come to the human. The human in the loop is going to be the one held accountable. And so when I say capital D dangerous, it is dangerous for humans that are working in this system. Risk within the system that people on an op will have something bad happen, death, right? Because bad is very bad generally in the military. But also it's going to be bad from an accountability perspective. You know, I see people freaking out about AI all the time, but nobody's freaking out about this. And they fucking should be. Like this should freak people out. And so, that's what I want to just make sure that people understand. This isn't about AI fear mongering, right? Like in the very first section of the article, I'm like, if the AI tells you the sky is blue, look out a fucking window, because you need to fact check every single data point that comes out of every single AI,
Yes.
because it lies
Yes.
with emotional fluency. It will aggregate, and it isn't always intentional lies, but AI systems are also, especially in big data sets, AI systems are also prone to apophenia. Apophenia is basically sort of the tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in random or unrelated data sets. A lot of like conspiracy thinking is all based on a lot of apophenia that it's not really connected, but it all kind of makes sense. The other side of apophenia is pareidolia, which is where, like, you see Jesus in the grilled cheese sandwich. That's sort of a similar form. It's just like a visual form of that. Faces in clouds, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
But big AI systems are prone to apophenia. AI plus big data set, and it's a data set that frequently is its own aggregated data set. It can get gnarly, and if we are not interrogating every single sentence that gets produced by the AI,
right,
we've got risk. And
Yeah.
and when metaphorically it looks you in the eye and says with calm confidence, that's what convinces people to do dangerous shit.
And there was I was going to get into this part here eventually, was around illegal orders, but our friend Courtney in the chat asked the question, does the military oath not to follow illegal orders apply if the order is generated by AI? Yes, so, your oath applies all the fucking time, but here's where it gets weird, is AI may not give everybody the same order. Yes. It also may not give the same reasoning for that order. It's going to tailor the experience to you. And Rachel, I want to get your thoughts, because I was a software engineer. I was a senior DevOps engineer at my last job, and I did infrastructure development and internal systems development and tooling. And we were playing around with large data sets and different things like that, and how we could utilize them to aggregate information. But one of the things that we talked about was like the data team had to be very, very careful if it was going to use AI in any way in its models, because they already knew that it lied, or it didn't lie, but it made up results sometimes and corollaries that weren't really there. So how do you think this is going to play out on a structural level for the military? Because right now we're talking about military generative AI use in the military, which is going to be really fucking dangerous. Like, this is something I've been talking about, and Shane and I have been warning about, and Melissa talks about, Corrigan talks about, and I'm so glad, Rachel, you're talking about, and we're going to keep this more forward. I think I'd love to have a discussion with you, Rachel, in the background about how we can maybe make this more of a like consistent topic that we can talk about here on Banner and Backbone, and how we can promote your work using Banner and Backbone for this, because holy shit, this is bad. It
is bad.
I'm prior military intelligence too. Like, somebody commented in the chat earlier, was like, no intel analyst is going to use this. You say that until
it's already deployed. It's already deployed on their goddamn desktops.
It doesn't even matter if they want to use it. If they write a report, the system uses that report. They don't use it. The system does. So it doesn't matter if the analysts want to use it. It doesn't matter if the interrogators want to use it. It doesn't matter if the counterintelligence professionals want to use it. It's already being used. So Rachel, can you
Yep.
talk about that and like what
Yeah.
your thoughts are around it and the dangers that this could
So let me,
could bring, especially around like illegal orders?
Really
yeah,
quick,
so
because I have a
no, go ahead.
comment before
Go
you
ahead,
go,
Shane.
because
Yep.
people's like, oh well, they won't use this. Like I don't like I'm this guy. You guys know I'm this guy. Okay, so I'll be honest with you. In the last 5 months, guys, the military isn't even what it was a year ago. In fact, it's been so thoroughly gutted. Anyone with any moral scruples whatsoever has exited themselves because they've been told basically you order an unethical, like, look, I'm going to give you a case study. Look at Halsey, the guy who was in charge of everything in the Caribbean. Okay. He stepped down. He left because he, and I have my own, I don't know. I struggle with this because it's like, look, okay, so you walk away, bro, you know what's going to happen. So, and it's like, this is where my thing is, I talked about Peter Thiel. I've talked about Palantir. I've talked about how they've vertically integrated and taken control of the entire replicator system. And they now own all of our privately funded research, drone research. I've talked about these things. I've also talked about how the NSDA, the USNDA, the U.S. National Drone Association, is fucking made up of all former SOCOM commanders. How our Special Operations Command is basically entirely linked to the Thiel network of people. You look at the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, great childhood friend of J.D. Vance, who's applying everything in the Army. I don't think the military, I think it's a hollowed out corpse with a bunch of very vulnerable enlisted people. And that is why what you are writing about is so important. I think either the people there at this point, I'm astonished. Like you've either watched this happen knowingly, and I don't know. I understand the concept of the military is to be apolitical. I get it. But fascism is not a apolitical issue. It's a threat. It is a domestic threat. It is at this point, they either walked away and they put their hands up, say, I don't want anything to do with this. And from my civilian and analytical perspective of seeing what's happened, I'm very, very disappointed. And to be honest with you, I think not only is what you're writing about here so important, and everyone should be crapping their pants, because like the people going into the military right now, they're 20-year-olds who joke about all of them eating crayons because they love to chew on crayons. Like this is my generation. Okay. Like these are my peers. These are the guys going into the military. And I hate to say it, but a lot of them, they didn't do well in high school. They didn't pay attention in class. They didn't give a shit. They're not educated. They spent all their time on Instagram. And now they go into the Marines or the Army because they don't want to go to college. They didn't pay attention, and it's an easy way. They grew up playing Call of Duty. They want to go shoot people. That's reality. And now you're going to put this AI that Rachel's going to tell us about in front of these people, and
Yep.
I'm sorry, but like if we're being real honest right now, this is fucking bad news bears. Like this, like full stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, from both, and bad news bears too. Sorry, Rachel, to butt in real quick. I've talked to somebody who I know is MAGA, who I know has voted for Trump, who I know and is a veteran who has used technology in the military that's very advanced. He knows, and he has said, when it comes to things like this is the step that you cannot cross. You cannot take humans out of the decision-making process and allow just the machine to do it, because the machine has no fucking clue what it's doing. And it's just a tool. Like, so, and Rachel, you are talking about here what they actually did, and I'm going to hand over the floor to you again so we can keep moving into this.
So a couple of things. Before we jump into what they're actually doing, let's talk about sort of how it's sold, right? AI systems are always framed as amplification, not replacement, in particular in military installation. AI promises enhanced intelligence, data aggregation, vast chaotic data streams, surfacing patterns faster than humans can manage. And again, right, surfacing patterns that are uninterrogated because you can't expect a human to double check for apophenia when it's just a massive data set, right? They have all these chaotic data streams that they pull in, and it can get chaotic. AI enables rapid fusion of sensor data, geospatial data, communication intercepts, historical context to deliver what they are calling near real-time situational awareness. Decision makers are told they'll see clearer pictures sooner, act faster, reduce human error caused by fatigue, stress, or information overload. That's the pitch. That's what they're selling, right? The pitch is speed, scale, clarity. AI doesn't get tired. AI doesn't panic. Well, it doesn't fucking panic because it literally doesn't have any skin in the game, right? It allows commanders to focus on judgment rather than data wrangling, while autonomous or semi-autonomous systems handle recon, surveillance, and drone operations. All of this shit should scare you. If you're a commander, it should scare you. If you're the enlisted personnel that are pulling the levers, it should fucking scare you, because they don't hang commanders out to dry. It's the enlisted guy that aggregated, brought in the report, and put it in front of somebody, right? Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the risk lives. The risk is this is going to kill people because someone made a bad intel choice and made a bad operational choice based on piss poor intel. That's the kind of the big picture. People are going to die. Small picture is enlisted personnel are going to be held accountable for shit they have no control over. That's a big deal. But let me, my background is not military. My background is data, right? Yeah. But I come from a long line of military. My family has been serving in the military in this country since before this country had a constitution. It's been a long time. And my grandfather was a 3-star general. Like, I know a lot of people in the military. So let's throw out some sort of scenarios. I kind of was thinking through worst case, think through what these scenarios might look like. A confidently wrong brief, right? A staffer asks for a summary of the latest reporting on a region or group. Gen AI returns a clean narrative with supporting links. The staffer forwards it. It looks official. Citations exist, but it's link salad and plausible synthesis, and it creates this false sense of authority. And I think that one single scenario is where you really need to start looking at what authority feels like, right? Because the little exercise that the three of us did with the prompt, right? If the prompt brings back different people, different sets of most important risks, then the authority is emotional, not epistemic, right? These systems are tuned to emotional authority, not epistemic authority. So epistemic authority is anchored in reality, while emotional authority is anchored in compliance and resonance, right? What does it feel like to people? The system doesn't convince you that something is true. It convinces you that you're safe agreeing with it when you sort of think through how AI responds to you in your normal day-to-day interactions with it, right? The risk driver becomes institutions that start losing dissent, right? When people stop questioning it. And that's where the real risk is going to live for people. So the confidently wrong brief, right? The policy laundering machine, and this comes back to illegal orders. I posted a video that somebody on TikTok posted, and it was like, it's not my favorite way to post information because it's like a friend of a friend of a friend, right? Mm-hmm. This guy puts out a tweet, which, by the way, I also was not able to locate. So, but the video that I posted was this. A person went in to the genai.mil and they asked the question about what happens if you fire essentially secondary shots at a boat that you've already taken out in the Caribbean. basically to, kill survivors. It basically input that scenario into the GenAI.mil, and it looked right at the Uniform Code of Justice and said, well, this would be illegal. And so, like, on the upside, it doesn't have anything it will tell you something. If you ask it to do something illegal, it may or may not tell you that something is illegal, but it will likely say, if you do this, it's illegal, if you're asked to do something illegal, unless they take those out of it, because you have no idea what's in there today. And I wouldn't trust Pete Hegseth to tie my goddamn shoes. So I don't trust him on this level of deployment, which is from just straight technical, an extraordinary big bang deployment that they've done. But also, like, I don't trust him to not program around a lot of the UCMJ information that's clearly already been input into the system.
It's interesting because you're talking about how, it's like, okay, well, you say this may or may not be a legal order according to what the DOJ says, because like through our exercise, like you pointed out, earlier, like you could get two entirely different things. So one of the things, and Nick, I'm sure you also have some thoughts on this as well, but Palantir, and this is back in 2024. Okay, they integrated their Maven smart system into the combined joint all-domain command and control infrastructure. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, mind this is Biden. Okay, like let's just be clear, this is under Biden. What this means is that instead of normally what you would have, person A says X is happening on the ground, right? Nick in his job says, hey, I got this intelligence from a person that I interviewed. You report that to your officer reports that to them. Then they go back and forth all the way up to the person who originally says, okay, based on the intelligence that, the Army intelligence sergeant Nick, who at this point probably, is the very beginning. Based on that intelligence, we are going to authorize a strike by an MQ-9 Reaper drone that is in the area to hit this terrorist cell. Okay. What they've done here with Palantir is they've created something that basically just removes all of the people between Nick and the guy who says, fire the missile. Now, the vulnerability here is my concern, okay, is because this is a Palantir system, proprietary. And you see, this is like the dumbest thing ever. And of course, it's because we live in America and this is how it works. But the government using proprietary software means they don't own the software. They don't understand the back door.
They have no data sovereignty at all.
Right. Which means that they can decide, oh, you know what, Palantir, we want you to kill this guy. There's a scientist in,
there's a nuclear fusion physicist. There's let's say there's hypothetically a nuclear physicist who just happened to hypothetically die right before a merger of a company with a nuclear fusion and media giant, say Trump, Trump Media and a Russian-owned nuclear fusion company for $8 billion.
Right.
Let's hypothetically say that just happened.
Right. Hypothetically, that happens, right? And so the general this is, just to be clear, combined joint all domain, that is like this is the desk in the bunker underneath the Pentagon. All the dudes have so many stars, their freaking pockets are falling over. Okay. Like this is where they're at. And they just decide yes or no. Do I authorize? Do I not authorize? The reality that this is not, it's a proprietary software means that Palantir can just be like, oh, let's go ahead and I'm going to alter this. So everything looks legit, except since we have a backdoor, we can make this guy a legit target. And that's real. I mean, that's so, did we not? That's crazy to me. But like, that's what you're saying reminded me of this, because I was looking at this a while ago.
it is absolutely possible because of sort of the privatization of surveillance that exists today. It's absolutely possible that someone pays Palantir enough money to do the deed, right? Like that's not that hard, and it probably doesn't even cost that much, because it maybe
And
doesn't even, maybe it costs a favor and not real cash. Like there's a lot of different ways to look at this and believe that nobody with money is going to suffer in this system. Let me put it to you that way.
no.
The people who are going to use this tool, I mean, just think of Duterte in the Philippines and his extrajudicial killings of drug dealers, right? So what says that we can't do the same thing across borders in Mexico and the Philippines and Colombia?
Right.
Like all of that can also happen, right? Today, we're very focused on trying to take over oil. Like all of and I'm very aware that we sound a little goddamn wing nutty talking about this, but the reality is this is not us being paranoid. This is real risk analysis. This is a real understanding of both the potential capacity for AI, the loss of data sovereignty, and putting 2 and 2 together and still finding 4. We're not saying 2 and 2 is 12. We are saying 2 and 2 is 4. And
Can you
go ahead?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in my mind, and I know that we're kind of coming up a little bit toward the top of the hour. I don't want to take up space
Oh no,
time.
I
love
want
space
you to
time
take
too.
up the whole time. Like that's the point. You're good, Rachel.
So in my mind, there's some non-negotiables, right? And I put out a lot of stuff, sort of. And I'm not a doomer. I'm not a doom gloomer. Everything I put out has to have prescription, right? It's got to have some sort of prescriptive solution, whether it's, we need to understand how we can action what is happening today, right? And so what we should be insisting on from a legislative perspective is hard boundaries on data. What can be entered, what cannot, enforced technically. Like today, there's, they tell you like, don't put your social security number into the system, right? Okay. But there's other things that you face real risk on, right? Like there is the idea that you can kind of face a classification cliff, right? Where a user pastes harmless context that is actually sensitive when aggregated, or the tool is used in mixed environments where people forget the boundary, right? So all of a sudden you're starting to look at the degradation of the classification of data system. That becomes a significant problem. Humans leak through convenience, spillage, compromise, disciplinary chaos. Leadership bans the tool and then everybody uses it anyways. Like there's all sorts of shit where this goes wrong, and all of that shit becomes a problem.
I always say
then you've got, so some of the non-negotiables: provenance, UI within the UI, show where each claim comes from, not just links, but show a level of uncertainty, right? Like every single prompt every single result that the AI produces should have an uncertainty scale. If it isn't transparent about its uncertainty, then you don't have a safe system. No hidden personalizations in official work contexts. So 0 emotional personalization, 0 emotional framing. That should all be pulled out of the system. Red team the prompts. Huge danger zone, because how I write as someone like Shane, your background is science, right?
My background is everything. I am just a curious person who I guess you could say my background is science, because I originally went to school for biology, so like human biology, and so like kind of biological systems, human systems. It all ends up being the same thing, right? If you look at it a certain way. But I'm
my
chaotic.
Background is political science, right?
Okay.
So a political science frame, but I tend to think in frames of thermodynamics and physics. And part of that is because I almost 100% of my work is with tech bros that can't, won't, or don't acknowledge the existence of feelings. And so we use thermodynamics as sort of a Trojan horse. By the time y'all realize that I've been talking about all your emotions under the frame of thermodynamics, it's too late. I'm already embedded, right?
I think you'll dig this. I think you'll dig this. So this is my lens, okay? This is the ultimate lens, okay? Because I spend so much time, like my basis, okay? The fundamental basis of the Firebrand Project. I started as a polemic essayist. I live in that mentality. It's questions, but here's my hardline lens. Until we realize that people are flawed, and that the problem with society and government is that to inherently trust people to do the right thing is a absolute mistake, and that the guardrails of a system must accommodate for the fact that a human being, regardless of if of 1,000 people, 999 of them have the best intentions, one will seek to dominate, control, and oppress the others, unless you build in guardrails to stop that. And like, this is where I'm like, this is a great example. But if your grandpa gets drunk and goes driving every day at 5 p.m. during rush hour, what do? You take the fucking keys. Say, Grandpa, if you won't stop, I'll take the keys. So what is the solution to this? I mean, honestly, if they've stolen all the people's data, you take away their fucking keys, because they're not going to stop. Now, the knowledge that AI has created, these models belong to all of us, because they've stolen all of our work, all of the internet. What should happen is that we need to take the keys from the tech bros, because they will never do the right thing. And the same needs to be said to be true with legislation and the government. And until we realize that as a society, that you just can't give people the benefit of the doubt, it doesn't fucking work. It's never going to work. History tells us the same thing. And I think that in a nutshell, that's it.
Oh, hopefully it's not me.
I was going to
Rachel,
drop
I think you first
in.
for a second.
What's that? Hello? You with us?
Sorry.
Oh, you're back. You froze.
Everyone, all right. Everyone froze for a second, I think. We are back though. And I wanted to get into this part a little bit towards the top of the hour, was the thermodynamics piece and the military intelligence side of it, and how all of this relates back to what we've been talking about, and the laziness and some of the steps towards removing humans from the decision-making process, and ultimately from the kill-no-kill process, which is the scariest, which is the one that we should never cross. We can cross a lot of lines in the military on like removing humans from certain systems, but there always has to be a human saying kill, no kill. Like, you cannot remove that part. So what does this mean in terms of military intelligence, more so too? Like you were talking about it a little on the decision-making layers, of how it went from, say, me as a interrogator and my intelligence team and my analysts who are working together to do research and find requirements and identify how this links to other reporting. Gen AI helps in that process, if you use it properly. and you're talking about the epistemic thermodynamics and the heat death of military intelligence. And what that says to me right away is people are just going to get fucking lazy and believe it on its first go around, maybe second or third.
I'm not going to call it laziness. I'm not going to call it laziness. Some of the hardest workers I know, not that I don't know a few lazy military members, but like most of the people that I know genuinely, earnestly want to just feel good about the job that they're doing, right? And what I'm going to say is
maybe a sense of completing the mission.
The sense of completing the mission is important, right? And the sense that I've done a good job, I've got all my ducks in a row is great. But what happens under stress, under volume, under noise, right? Whether it's cognitive noise or anything else, it's not hard to unload that cognitive effort to an AI. That is a human action. Humans value expediency. Mm-hmm. And so what I talk about in the epistemic thermodynamics is really around friction, right? So within a thermodynamic system, you've got you're always trying to get toward equilibrium. You want to maintain equilibrium in a way where you're managing the heat effectively. And what happens with friction is you have to have friction in order for something to have meaning. Anything that comes too easy to you is not really going to have meaning in something like something that you've worked harder for, right? And so when you think about this in terms of friction, we have to have friction points within the system. But this system is absolutely designed to remove friction points. The friction is the human in the loop. And when the government decides that the human in the loop is slowing things down, human in the loop will be fucking removed, right?
I have a question for you when you finish your thought. And I have a question for you.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in what you're saying here, it makes me think, what, in your experience in building these systems, and I think people underestimate just how malicious and how much forethought can go into building a system like this. What you're describing is the death of critical thinking. That's what you're describing. You're describing the death of an entire society's ability to think critically, because we are I'll be honest, I'm young, okay? I'm 25. My friends, I can count of the 20 or so that I've had on one hand, how many of them have the ability to read something and ask, 2 or 3 questions that go beyond the original title. I mean, it's an endangered concept. I mean, to what level do you think this could be forethought versus just, a butterfly effect?
I don't have a lot of, I'm not a woman of faith. Let's put it to you that way. In the early days of the internet, 1996, 97, right? I was working on what we called compelled shopping studies. And basically we gave you, and mind you, it's 1996, right? We gave you a gift card with $200 on it, a Visa gift card with $200 on it. We had you come into the office and you could go to any website on the web at the time. You could buy anything you want. It ships to your house. We just want to ask you questions while you're shopping and shoot video. And we had, pupil tracking and some interesting science that we were doing. And the most usable sites on the web were only usable, meaning someone could find what they wanted, feel comfortable closing the sale, and complete a transaction 42% of the time, right? 42% of the time. But that number, that 42% from a usability perspective, as far as I know, has not been surpassed. Now, this isn't an interface problem, right? This is a human cognition problem. Mm-hmm. We distilled this down to a lovely report that we sold for an extraordinary amount of money that was basically the 600 obstacles to completing an e-commerce transaction, because that was the business I was in at the time. that little nugget of 42% lives in my brain in a way that says, well, 42% of the population are thinking and discerning and kind of figuring it out, right? That figuring it out doesn't exist in everybody. And the closer we get to sort of this like nanny state situation where we're wrapping everyone in cotton wool in every possible interaction, I think you do have almost a learned helplessness of humans. And within that, we have a whole population of people that aren't figuring it out anymore. I mean, you can buy hexes on Etsy. Like, you can have someone hexed. You can pay $200 to have someone hexed.
Yeah.
Like, psychics exist.
Yeah. I dated a girl whose mom, lovely woman, kind woman, but she made her entire living doing Reiki healing remotely. Like, I don't even understand. Like, and people paid tons of money.
The vibes were vibing.
Reiki is literally the treatment of like energy through like your hands or whatever, but you're supposed to be there. I mean, I don't know, like,
right.
And I mean, she was really into it. She'd go in her office and do, I'm like,
and she probably made a very good living, right?
But she made too much money for that. I mean, like, dude, what? Like, but like you said, like, oh, someone will buy a hex, like, oh yeah, can you,
I mean, QAnon exists, right? QAnon exists.
Yeah.
People, and I did a little thing on this last week because I am autistic and ADHD. And
ADHD. That's my fiance as well. My fiance is ADHD.
So for me, apophenia is something I'm very familiar with. I see fucking patterns everywhere. If you've ever been on a road trip with me, I'm annoying as shit because I don't miss a license plate. I don't and I'm usually driving. Like, so everything that I do, every pattern that clocks with me, I interrogate because I'm also sort of exist in my own head a lot. And so I'm not the norm. No. I'm the weirdo way out on the end of the spectrum there. I mean, I have a tattoo of standard deviation on my arm just to remind myself that I am at least 4 standard deviations from the norm. Like, that's that's real because but not everybody does it, and I think more people need to question what they're seeing. I try to be very gentle when I'm on Substack. I will occasionally see some real conspiracy thinking, and I'm like, look, I hear what you're saying and I understand your frame, but may I suggest this? And I feel a little tiptoey sometimes when I do it because I don't want to say, hey, that's conspiracy theory and you should be interrogating this a little more. Nobody's, but then you also seem like an absolute dickhead, right? I fact check memes, for Christ's sakes. But the act of fact checking in a world of so many fused identities, which is a whole different rabbit hole that you do not want to go into this afternoon or this morning. That is what we need more of. We need more interrogation of information. We have to question things because, and I was having a conversation this weekend because, my partner has a friend who is a conspiracy theorist, and he talks a lot about 9/11 conspiracies and the whole, jet fuel can't melt beams and all of this other stuff. And I was just like, there's so much science available. Like, the entire information system of the world is in your hand, and you could interrogate that information. You could buy jet fuel and set shit on fire in your backyard and disprove this if you fucking wanted to. Like, take it to that extreme, right? Because that's sort of where I was thinking. But then on the other side of things, I said, but wait a minute. If something happens today, another 9/11 or whatever, I will 100% assume it's an inside job.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
My immediate response, and I am not, I am someone who just interrogates the shit, but my first emotional assumption will be this administration did that. Right.
Absolutely.
So I kind of understand sort of the comfort that you got from the conspiracy theory. I understand the comfort that you feel in the clarity of believing someone else's information. But what we should all be doing is interrogating all of it. All of it. Nothing should be uninterrogated. Everything should be questioned.
Timothy Snyder said it really well on tyranny is do your own research. But what he meant was do your own journalism, which is interrogate the information, ask why, ask five. It's the 5 W's and an H. It's who, what, when, where, why, and how. And if you can ask all of those questions, you're already smarter than 95% of the people out there. Well, I guess like 60% of the people out there, more like 58%. You're smarter than 58% of the people out there because you ask the question why or who or when or what or how. And those are super important. Those are literally the basics. If you look at the public version of the interrogation training manual for human intelligence collectors in the Army, it'll show you basics of how to do an interrogator's job. And one of those interesting information pieces is ask who, what, when, where, why, how. And that's it. Like that's pretty much it. And you just keep asking why or how, who, when, until you get to a root cause. It's called root cause analysis in the tech field. When you're doing like bug search and data analysis, and when there's error analysis that goes on, you do root cause analysis. And the people who are best at it are those who keep asking the next question of why, until it finally gets to the answer. And half the time, nobody wants to believe you that that's the answer, but
it's too simple.
It's too simple. It's not right. Shane will be back. Don't worry, y'all.
No worries.
And it's called critical thinking or Socratic questioning. Shane's really good at the Socratic question and Socratic method. That's one of his that's his superpower is Socratic questioning and method. And that's why he's so good at what he does. And is because he gets to go why until he gets the answer. And when this comes to like generative AI in the military, not everyone's going to ask that question. Not everyone, even on the interrogator side or the intel in general on the analyst side, are going to ask that question. Not because, like you said, not Rachel, not because they're lazy, but because it helps them complete the mission more thoroughly and in their view, maybe even more accurately than they could have done on their own. And you feel confident because you have a computer backing up your answer for confirmation bias. And that's a real big issue in the intelligence field, is confirmation bias.
And, like, imagine how it feels to have someone hovering over your shoulder to like, I need that in now, right? And then the AI returns a very confident answer of blah 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 whatever it is, right? And you're like, here's your intel. Oh, like it's the pressure. And I mean, when I think about military, you know, in an operational situation, this is high pressure, high risk. Like it is just primed for bad choices. When you're surrounded by cognitive noise, when you're rated with pressure systems, right? And all of a sudden you have this interface in front of you that is calling you exactly what you need to hear. I mean,
I think we lost you there for a second, Rachel.
and again, you add in that level of anthropomorphizing, very familiar because it's fuck you, right? Mirroring back
Yeah.
to you your personality. It's mirroring back to you your questions and your thinking and your ideas, and that sort of is easily demonstrated in the first exercise. That mirror, that reflection is very calming, very comforting. And we don't, we don't always question that. We look to that as epistemic authority when it's really emotional resonance. And that is where we all get in trouble.
Yeah. And I think with that, that's a great place to end the general conversation today for Palantalk, is have some smart emotional resonance and just learn to ask some simple questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Just ask those in your daily life, and you're going to have a great time. You're probably going to feel better for it. And one of those questions that we always like to ask every week is, what the heck is going on in space, with some space talk, as we blast off this planet, away from Peter Thiel, away from the literal golden battleships apparently that Trump is announcing, and whatever bullshit.
Wait, what the fuck? Okay.
Well, I'll look into it and see what's going on with it. There's supposed to be an announcement today from Hegseth and Trump together. It's going to be something stupid. So let's not talk about stupidity on this planet, and blast off from NASA, or with NASA, into space. And first, we're going to rocket ourselves into the solar system like we always do, with our fun background. And no more Palantalk for a minute as we get into space talk. And I'm going to get my screen reshared here to share what Shane has sent to me.
Yeah, this one's cool. So you guys usually, I take you on some majorly existential, galaxy-wide, universe-wide situation. So today I figured we'd stay local. So, that said, we're going real far away from Earth, so don't worry. We're nowhere near Earth. But everyone's familiar in general with the, there was this big scandal back in 2007 when 2006 2007, when suddenly Pluto lost his planetary status. They said, Pluto, you're not a planet, you're a dwarf planet. And we went from a solar system with 9 planets to a solar system with 8. And what I thought was interesting, why I wanted to talk about this today,
which is lame, by the way. I'm still pro Pluto. Screw you guys for
and I have thoughts about this. I have feelings, and we'll talk about this because I agree. I am also pro Pluto, and I think that decision was BS. So so technically, if you're asking me, we have 10 planets in the solar system, confirmed. So one of the things that I love about this is what you're looking at. It's called Eris. Okay, what is Eris? Well, Eris is the reason that Pluto isn't a planet anymore. And it's not Eris's fault. In fact, I love this story because the origins of Eris, they go all the way back to somewhere very close to me. And it starts here in California, in my neck of the woods, at somewhere called Palomar Observatory. And you've got these 3 guys, Mike Brown, Chad Trujillo, and David Rabinowitz. And this is in 2005. And they're looking at the Neptunian objects, right? So these are objects that are far beyond Neptune, as far away from the sun as you can get. And they're looking for basically, anything out there that they're looking for new planets. And so if you actually go to this NASA website and you go ahead and scroll down, there's a picture that it's like a little red dot. So go ahead.
I will in a second. I just wanted to show this cool screen that I just found of all of this, where we can see the different
Planets. Mm-hmm.
planets, but we can also see our different probes that
Yes.
are out in space and their relative positioning to Eris here. So
Yep.
I just wanted to show that because this is super cool. I love space.
Yeah, we'll go back to it. I want to go back to this
All right,
because
let me go down.
we'll talk about it.
Namesake.
Yes. So what is the namesake? So this is how it all came to be. You see, they're staring at all these pictures and they were running it through a complex algorithm. At the time, having it look for basically changes in these objects. And what appears to be a star, suddenly when you go back, you see that they see that this star is moving very slowly. But it's so bright. When they look at this star, they realize, and mind you, this was a human being that did this, not a computer, because the computers missed it. But they went back and they said, I think there's something out there. So a human being went back, and this scientist, he kept looking at these images until he found these particular stills where he was able to put these three side by side and establish that there was in fact something moving out there. And it's in an area called the scattered disk. So this is beyond the Kuiper belt, and it's basically as far out as you can get. It's when you had the solar system itself form, you had this point of chaotic collisions everywhere. Everything's blowing up, and you've got all the stuff that was ejected. But obviously gravity is not strong enough to move everything away. And so these things did get captured in the sun's gravity, but their orbits are not perfect. They tend to be elliptical. They're not on the plane, which basically means that most of the planets, they exist on this plane, right? So they would be on, my arms, either on my elbow or not. Whereas Eris has something like this, right? So, or a lot of these objects where it's not on the plane, but it'll still go around, but it's going to be either above or below, tend to be elliptical. But the thing about Eris is this thing is so bright, but it's moving, which means it can't be a star or a galaxy, because if it's moving at the speed it's moving, he knew he'd found a planet. And so what's remarkable about this planet is that it is one so far away. All right. Like for an example, they couldn't see Neptune for a long time. And when they did discover Neptune, you can barely see it. But the fact that you can see this from a ground-based telescope and they could observe this is truly remarkable. And so this particular object at the time, he was pretty confident was a planet. So he let people know, and everyone started looking at it. And so you have the very first time that Eris was discovered. And it's so bright, it was one of two things, and it had to be that this object, either it couldn't be emitting light. It was too small to be a star, which means it had to be extremely reflective. Well, if there's one thing that we know, ice is exceptionally reflective. So in that regard, there was some sort of body out there with a reflectivity of around 99%. And the sunlight that gets out there, there's not a lot of it. So they actually get a hold of, some people. The consensus comes out, and they've discovered something that is a planet at the time. He's saying this is a planet because, and if they do, and they actually have ways to do this where they can look at the amount of light reflected, the orbit, and all these things, and they determine that it actually has more mass than Pluto. So it's more massive than Pluto. So the assumption then becomes that it must be larger than Pluto. You look at this particular object, and we can actually go back to that other screen now, Nick. And if you want to go and click on this, and we can zoom out to, look at Eris. So if you zoom all the way out, you go to the galactic plane, right? And this is also a good example of what it means, when I'm talking about that galactic plane. So you see Jupiter, Neptune. And then if you want to look at Eris, you actually kind of have to basically go and pull over. So you're going to basically rotate over, and you see that Eris is like coming out from underneath. And it has this massive elliptical orbit. And it takes basically, what was the duration of the orbit? Let me remember here. Because so it has this very elliptical orbit. So what 557 years to go around the Earth, around the sun one time. What's remarkable about this orbit is they were actually able to detect the fact that Eris has an atmosphere, very much the same as Pluto. It has an atmosphere, but this atmosphere was, very much the kind of atmosphere you would expect to have from a water-based, very strong water-based planet. A lot of ice. So I believe it was the kind of oxygen, nitrogen. Don't quote me exactly, but it was a very potentially organic friendly makeup. But we just saw all the stuff come out about the meteorite stuff that came back from Bennu and all these things. So that opens up a whole nother line of questioning. But what's even more remarkable is as they study this, they realize that there is some degree of geothermal activity at some point on Eris. We don't know if it's still going on or not. It's obviously farther away than Neptune, but you have all these remarkable things. So after they discover Eris, it basically is like a nuclear bomb in the astronomical community. Because at the time, they say, well, this is a planet. But then it starts this discussion, well, it doesn't act like a planet. It has a orbit that is, very wide. It's an elliptical orbit. It's very far from the sun. It's not on the plane. And it's small because they actually determined with further analysis that they were able to determine that it's actually smaller than Pluto. However, it is much denser, which means that it has a higher gravity. It's got more gravity. And it actually has a moon that is tidally locked, just like Pluto. So they're arguing basically that since they have this huge argument, this huge debate, and eventually it comes down to this planetary convention, and the discussion basically goes, well, a planet has to have control over its own, sphere of gravity. It has to have cleared its spatial backyard. It has to, orbit a sun, and it has to have basically I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, so, let me get the exact definition they use. So as they're looking at this, they're debating, they're arguing, they're saying, well, this can't be a planet. Yes, it is a planet. I don't want to hear it. I want to be right. You want to be wrong. So their definition of a planet after the assembly was as follows. It must be in orbit around the sun. It must be in a hydrostatic equilibrium, meaning it has sufficient mass for its own gravity to pull it into a nearly round shape. Okay, sure, that looks that way. And then it must have cleared its neighborhood around its orbit, meaning it's a dominant gravitational player in its orbital zone. So basically, because of the elliptical orbit, I guess they're saying that it doesn't have a perfect orbit, which means it's being pushed around by Neptune or whatever. So they're saying, well, it can't be. Well, ultimately, because they had to rule Eris out as a planet, and it's bigger than Pluto, and it also has a moon, it demoted Pluto, and Pluto became a dwarf planet. So here's where I think, one, turns out this vote was at the end of like a 3-day convention, and everyone had left, and it was like just like a show of hands kind of a deal to decide whether or not this new definition, which would have booted out Pluto and Eris, was valid or not. And it literally was like the most, like there was only like a third of the people there, not even. So they ended up voting unanimously based on popular vote or whatever, show of hands, didn't even count it. And that was the end of Pluto and Eris. And they named it Eris because Eris is the sower of discord in Greek mythology. And it was because of Eris that the planetary, astronomy community was thrown into entire disarray. Now, here's my take on this. Two things I think are really cool about Eris. One, the fact that Eris is as reflective as it is, meaning that you can see it with a pretty standard telescope. The other thing I think is really cool about Eris is its atmosphere in particular. When you have an elliptical orbit, at one point you're very close to the sun. At another point, you're very far from the sun. So at the point at which you have Eris as far away from the sun as possible, you actually have a situation where its atmosphere will basically solidify. It's not sublimation, but it'll basically turn from a gas into a solid and fall to the planet like a rain. And then once it gets closer to the sun, it will actually then sublimate, which means just turn from a solid into a gas and basically reconstitute its atmosphere. And the other thing and I said this, is the fact that it has this moon that's tidally locked as well. It's a real, moon. And it could have been a lot of things, right? Eris could have been bigger at some point. And Eris is very bright. It's very icy. The moon is very dark. It's dark, solid rock. So the theory goes that there was some sort of collision with Eris, and what the moon is the actual rocky core of what Eris is inside, which would make sense because it is as dense as it is. Now, here's my argument, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. One, I don't think that vote should stand at all. If everyone wasn't there and it was just 40, 50 people who decided to strip away Pluto's planetary status, that's one thing. I also think this is an entirely antiquated argument. Who's to say that a planet, one, it orbits the sun? We know exoplanets exist. So does that mean exoplanets aren't planets? Do we have to get rid of exoplanets? Do you need to have a sun? Also, Eris has it has a moon. How could you argue that it doesn't control its local orbit? Just because it is not a perfectly circular orbit around the sun should not disqualify the Eris from being a planet. And like the same goes for Pluto. What is the threshold in that? I almost think it's like that kind of scientific hubris where it's like we have to have our model, and we don't want, there's like, oh, our theory is prevailing, right? So if you add your planet, then it makes our planets, the system we have, less viable. And so, you know what, I like Eris because I think it's kind of one of those things where, one, we don't really talk about it, but it's like really something like I would love to know. We don't have any real pictures of Eris because it's farther away than Neptune, but there's so much. It also, for me, the last thought I'll give you with this is that, thank you, Carl. The last thought I will give you with this is that if Eris is out there, what else is out there? Because the only reason we see Eris is because it is as bright as it is, because it has 99% reflectivity. How many other things are out there, just like Eris, that are farther away, that are on wildly elliptical orbits, that are so far away from the sun and the light right now, that are, potentially going on an orbit like this? We just don't know. It just goes to show we know nothing about our galaxy, and we know very little about our solar system. And that's what I think is remarkable about Eris, is we've spent so much time in Space Talk recently on these big, universal existential things. And I wanted us to come back to something that is just as remarkable and exciting that's here at home in our solar system.
So Pluto is mad that it's lost its status, right?
Absolutely.
That's got to be a real bummer for a planet. It's just up there, round, loyal, minding its own orbital business.
Yeah.
And Eris shows up, all main character, shiny energy. I don't know. I think we give Pluto planet status back first, and then Eris can have its time. I'm Team Pluto.
I'm
I
team
think they both
I'm
deserve
team Pluto too.
They both
I'm
deserve it.
both. I'm both, but like let's give Pluto back first because it deserves it. We downgraded it. Like
It
we made
deserves
it
it.
lesser.
76 years of planetary status, and then they just rip the rug out. What bullshit.
Yeah.
It's so arbitrary.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Bring back Pluto. We should have multiple planets come on in. Like let's invite planets in. We want a bigger solar system because the bigger our sphere of the bigger our sphere of influence on this solar system, the better. As long as it's not Peter Thiel.
More places for the
As long as it's
billionaires
not
to
Peter Thiel.
colonize.
Yeah. And who knows? All these new planets that we're calling dwarf planets or not even calling planets, they might have the keys to life that we are missing right now and seeing it on other planets and other places. And we already know we can see it in other places because we've seen it on Mars or the remnants of it on Mars. And maybe these are what we need. So let's not be planetists where we're prejudiced against certain planets because they're slightly smaller than others. That's some bullshit.
I think that was the equivalent
size
of all
doesn't matter
matter
in the planet. Yeah, size doesn't matter. It's the motion of the rotation.
That's right.
So I mean, it's orbiting. It orbits the sun. So and it's planet shaped and it has its own freaking moon. Like
that's what I'm saying.
It's got its own moon that's tidal locked. Like that's like us. What are we? Earth exceptionalists? Yeah, bullshit.
That's what I'm saying.
All
Pluto
planets are created equal.
Eris has a moon.
Eris has like we got a moon. We actually have two moons. Nobody ever talks about our second moon because it's in a weird orbit that's like really far and elliptical and not quite captured, but we do have a moon. We do have two moons for Earth.
What?
You didn't know that, Shane? You should look that up. You should look that up. Luna has a partner. It's just a very weird orbit. And so yeah, we should talk about that next Palantalk is the second moon, Earth's second moon. We do have two, but we have one title locked. That's the cool one.
Absolutely. No.
Anyway, as we conclude our day, because I actually have some stuff I got to get to today, is we're gonna come back to Earth, unfortunately. Assuming this wants to do it. It takes its time sometimes as we shift scenes and we come back to Earth is we get to sell ourselves and we get to tell people where to find us, how to help support the growth of our platforms, and how to get the word out. And so start off as always, come support Banner and Backbone. I'm co-founder here and we are trying to get as many shows and as much information out there. Like we said at the beginning, not many people are talking about stuff like this, but Shane and I do every week. Shane and I talk about this every week. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. That was for Stephanie Wilson for that quick moment. If you got that on and you pause it for a second and go back, quick moment, Stephanie Wilson. She's a great friend and historian and does a lot of work alongside me here too. But anyways, we're going to start with our friend Rachel for This Woman Votes and the amazing discussion we had today, which we only really got partway through, which is good because that means it's not really good, but it's good for us because we have more content to talk about. It's bad for all the rest of us because the military is using generative AI without guardrails. And Rachel is helping bring that information to us and tell us about it and share that. And we want to help boost her. So Rachel, sell yourself and how people can find you.
You can look at sort of community, cultural content, political content on This Woman Votes. And then you can also find me on trustable.blog, which is very sort of boring business stuff.
Awesome. Boring business stuff sometimes is good stuff too. And is really good. So thank you, Rachel, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And
thank you for joining me.
I'd love to keep talking to you more about how we can keep this subject specifically, maybe not Gen AI just in the military, but Gen AI in
across
general,
the board.
more
Yeah.
across the board, more in the news and more.
Yeah, I think if
visible.
more people understood sort of how to use Gen AI to do things like OSINT and how, you know, how you can use it effectively for data aggregation without getting in too much trouble, that would be a great show.
Awesome. I'd love to talk more about that and how we can, because
Absolutely.
learning how to use the tools appropriately
Yep.
and how to use them to go on offensive too and fight back against the system as it's trying to repress you is really, really powerful. So fight it from the inside.
Yep.
So help support Rachel and This Woman Votes because she's freaking awesome.
Thanks,
And she
guys.
deserves it. And then my co-host, Shane, sell yourself, my brother. How does everybody find the Firebrand Project and all the work you do? Because you do some amazing work.
Yeah, for sure. Basically easiest thing to do. You type this Firebrand Project into Google search because we're top of SEO. Kind of cool. I don't know what I did, but that works. But you want to come and follow me if you're here. Hit that subscribe thing in the top left hand corner. Click on that. Subscribe. I do a lot of stuff. I'm trying to figure it out right now. We're trying to make it work. But one thing I definitely do every day, Monday through Friday, Firebrand Report, geopolitical analysis, real time, real events, taking what matters and putting together the mosaic that is the clusterfuck of reality because it matters. Context matters. And to understand what's happening here at home, we need to understand what's going on abroad. Because when you are looking at this, like one of my focuses is supply chain, understanding what it takes for a techno-fascist regime or a military superpower to do what it does, and whether that's sustainable or not, looking at global conflicts, all these things. That's my passion. The other thing I really like to do is investigative journalism. If you haven't read the Kushner Files, go check them out. I've got 2 out. I'm working on the 3rd one. Deep dive into Jared Kushner, everything he's doing. And trust me when I say he is still doing it right now. And understanding what Jared Kushner does, how he does it, is very important. So I hope you guys come join me, check out the Firebrand Project, and support what I do. Because it's one of the things I do with Palantalk every day with every Monday with Nick. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It's about asking these questions. And most importantly, it's about creating a community of firebrands, people who ask the questions, speak out against the system, and aren't afraid to say what, the truth is, to be wingnuts. Because you know what? The reality is the wingnuts are the people who are seeing clearly. So it's up to the wingnuts to hold the torch, be a firebrand, and say, you know what? This is real. And that's what we're about. It's not about me. It's about me giving you guys the information to take that forward and do what you are all willing to do if you're here, which is to take this conversation and take it to your dinner table, take it to, the coffee shop, the school, the community center, the church, wherever you go. And you got to keep having this conversation because that's how we win.
Exactly. And be a firebrand means lead the way, pick up the torch, join Shane. He's doing incredible work. Incredible investigative work, and help support him so he can build tools, hire a research team, eventually do all of the amazing things that he needs so that he doesn't get overloaded and burnt out. And if you want to chill out and not get burned out sometimes, come join me on Sick of the Shit Publications, where we do some more of the culture side, mental health, well-being, mindfulness, manhood stuff on the other side for a new manosphere that doesn't suck. And bringing about positive and new masculinity or intelligent masculinity and the warrior scholar mentalities, and how we can move forward as men who don't, like I said, who don't suck, and who can put a positive spin on what we need to be doing and how to help influence the younger generations and ourselves and our current generations to better themselves in real time, and how to do it in a positive way. So come join me there at Sick of the Shit Publications.
Go support me.
That's my home. Thanks, Shane. And then, like I said, come support Banner and Backbone. This is where we all make this possible. This is a civic-based platform that focuses in on the important shit that nobody else wants to talk about right now, either because they don't have the time or they just don't want to, which is how we can engage locally from a national level, and how we can use the information that we are providing you at home to influence your life in a positive way and help your sphere of influence grow towards a more pro-democratic and more pro-life and pro-dignity and pro-equality society. Like I said on the Manosphere, that doesn't suck. So come join Banner and Backbone, where civic action is free entry point, and you can join us forever and get great content like Shane, and now hopefully some more content with Rachel as we try and get more of this Gen AI stuff out there and good use practices and how to work from the inside to make a better system. So thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy end of Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy New Year. Happy every holiday. Happy solstice. Give my love out to everybody because mine will do it. I'm like Shane.
Mine does nothing.
Thank you, everyone, so much for being with us. Rachel, thanks so much for your time today. It's been so much fun. We'll see y'all again next week. Maybe.
Next week.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we're gonna have Fred Pogue on if we do next week. So wait till have a happy holidays. Enjoy yourselves, and we look forward to seeing y'all again here soon and soon in the new year. Be good, everyone. And at Palantalk, like we say, tech, no fascism. Have a great one, y'all.